Episode 34, Operator Syndrome. I'm still flying solo. I'm actually recording these back to back. You'll get them separated by a week. Sorry about that. Um, but don't have Steve. He should be back in the next one. And I am just going to wrap up uh, my tall tales of a particular mission that I went on back in 2007. Um, I'll do my usual disclaimer for those that may not have heard in the first one. It's just good practice. I'm doing the best I can to recall these details as I can remember them. If there are things I'm unsure of, I'll call it out. I'll call it out for you. One thing that I'd thought about during my break before the second segment is just to illustrate again, because the uh, the air crew, the aviators, will always try to play it down. It was just a hard landing. It happens all the time. I want to I want to demonstrate how vigorous of a hard landing that was. So as I'm sitting there on a knee, is at the very beginning. You're gonna have to watch episode 33 if this doesn't make any sense to you. Um, but I'm sitting there on a knee in the bird, and I've got my rifle on me, right? And I've got a standard 2 point sling, and I'm left eye dominant, so I shoot rifle left and I shoot pistol right. But that's another story. So I got my rifle, my sling goes from my buttstock up over my left shoulder, back around my back. So the force of that hard landing um, was such that I think I must have had my rifle up some, but the force of that whipped my rifle around and my sling up against my uniform. The friction was so intense it actually cut through all the layers to get down to bare skin. At the time, um, an undershirt. I was wearing what was I wearing? I was wearing like a long sleeve undershirt, and I was wearing it was called PCU. I can't remember what that's called. P is probably protective. PCU, protective cold weather. It was like this grayish cool guy jacket that we got issued. I don't know what it was, but it cut through that. It was like the soft shell version. Um, it cut through that layer to get the bare skin. It wasn't that big of a deal, but just in that moment, remember I told you it was instantaneous that everyone was knocked out onto our backs. And so, I mean, that's got to be pretty intense, right? So when I left, when I last left off, okay, yeah. So the story is we land, do a hard landing, some folks get hurt, we chase bad guys up and down some mountains all night. Um, getting tired, we're getting tired, drinking all our water. Catch the guy in the morning, decide, hey, we need somewhere to chill out until it gets dark again, so the helicopters can come and pick us up. Pick this fantastic, beautiful piece of property in a Afghan valley, um, and we're walking up to it at this point. So, um, and there had been signs for anyone who'd spent some time in Afghanistan. They're probably yelling at the screen or at their phone, like, "Hey, don't you see what's about to happen?" We didn't. We didn't see it. It was still early on in our deployment. Um, we were used to raiding. That's what we did. Um, and so sort of old school, infantry movement during the day. We knew by the book we were doing the right things. We look, as a formation, we looked fantastic, right? You got everyone's wedged out on each other, everyone's spread out the proper distance because it's daytime. Everyone's doing what they can, but we're walking into a valley. I should note that there weren't any other compounds anywhere around. So the choice would have been stay up on the ridge, set up a patrol base there at the top of the ridge, and just you know eat the sun all day, and then be stuck out there if someone decided to attack, or go into that compound. So it's easy to judge in retrospect, but that at the time that's the call that was made, and so that's what we did. So we're walking in, and it's by the way, it's getting warmer. It was cold, it was chilly during the night, but it's getting warmer and we're feeling it. those of us who are wearing like PCUs, long sleeves, that type of stuff. So walking into the mouth of the valley, first squad in the formation, detain someone. They're talking to him, trying to figure out, why are you waving us down? What is it? What do you want? What's the deal? Don't know what's going on with that because my squad is then in the lead and we're pushing towards this compound. So if you're me, you're standing there. I've got this low stone wall, maybe waist high stone wall, kind of squares off. You've got not quite a football field in front of you, but a decent patch. It's an orchard. I've always said it was apricot trees. I didn't do any research in this short break I had between the first segment and this. So I don't know. The trees were, if I make a fist, the the trunk, the trunk of those trees are maybe a fist. The branches are maybe like finger width, and they've got leaves on them. They do have leaves on them. I think something's growing on them. Don't remember that part. So that's what I'm looking at. The bottom of the canopy is maybe about head high, maybe somewhere in there. So just to set the scene. And so then you've got this this orchard in front of us, and then at the end of it, kind of off to the right hand side, as I'm looking down this valley, is this compound, a decent sized compound, high mud walls. We can see an entrance, no gate. I don't think there's a gate. I don't remember one, um, but it's down and off to the right. And how far it is, man, I couldn't tell you. I can't remember. It'll feel like a long time, and you'll know why in a second. So, first team goes across that wall. I see the wall. I slide over it. I slide over the wall with one foot. I just get my second foot over the wall, and I'm starting to walk in towards the orchard when I hear a sound. I hear a sound, and it sounds like a rocket, but I don't know it's a rocket. I just hear a sound. And I turn over my left shoulder, and I hear the rocket. I hear a detonation. By the time I'm looking over my shoulder, I don't see where it's detonated, but my eye is drawn to the column of. I should talk into the microphone. My 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 eyes are drawn to this column of black gray smoke, just a single column, and I was just like, "Huh?" It was like, "Huh?" And it's dead quiet. Like time stopped, animals stopped, everything stopped. Like it's just like turn around, what? And something catches my eye. So I'm only looking over my shoulder, and then something catches my eye like right where my head is pointed. So my eyes are looking back behind me, but my head is pointed to the left, and something catches my eye. And what's catching my eye is our battalion sergeant major. He's retired. I could probably say his name. I don't want to name drop here, but I'm pretty sure he is retired. He's a legend. It's Command Sergeant Major Rick Merritt. He's accompanying our our raid that night. I see him. I see him just sprinting. He's just sprinting forward towards the orchard, towards that direction. And as I'm seeing him sprint, that I'm very confused in this moment, just as I'm telling this story. See the column of smoke. I don't quite register what that was. And I see him sprinting, and I know that's also odd because he's not a young guy. Not he's not even back in 2007. No offense, Sergeant Major. Um, but he's not a young guy. Very fit. Don't mistake what I'm saying. But like he is hauling and he's moving. And I'm like, whoa. And I see him, and then he's coming into my field of vision and going forward. My eyes are brought back into the orchard. And I notice that all of a sudden, all the leaves, the trees are all like vibrating. the trees are all vibrating and they're shaking, and all like the leaves are falling down. They're like gently falling down, almost like if every tree had like a kid holding on to it, shaking it, like leaves were falling off, falling down. I'm still confused. This is all a second, less than a second. Boom, turn around looking, trees are vibrating, leaves are falling, and I'm watching the leaves fall, and I watch them head towards the ground, and then I notice that the ground is churning everywhere. Everywhere. The ground is churning and roiling like like bugs are coming out of it. Like the ground is alive. And then it starts a- and then what brings me to, which snaps me back into reality, is every every so often tracers are zipping into the ground. I'm not intending to pause for dramatic effect. I just forgot what that felt like. So so it's intense. So we got ambushed. We're sitting there in the stupid valley on foot, no cover, no real, well, yes, technically we kind of have cover. We got this orchard, we got these leaves. Um, 2/3 of the formation is out in the open behind us. There's nothing out there. I told you, it's just rocks, boulders. Um, the fact that they initiated their ambush with, I guess it was an RPG. I don't know. I don't know what it was. Some kind of rocket, something. Probably RPG. It was just one, I think. At least if they were firing rockets after that, they didn't waste it on the guys towards the front of the formation. And I don't remember any stories saying otherwise. But they initiated with an RPG and then they let loose with what they had in small arms. And so we're out in the open, just eating machine gun rounds. Um, it was intense. I mean, we were, well, I guess I'll keep telling the story. So, so yeah, I come to, not come to, again, this is like a second. It's hard to describe all the details that you can remember about, moments like that. But I come to because I realize it's it's small arms fire that's absolutely everywhere, coming through the orchard, and it's everywhere. I can't describe. When I say everywhere, it's everywhere. And every once in a while you see a tracer zip through into the ground. I'm like, who? And so I do what I'm trained to do, which is to what I could tell in that moment is it was coming from the left side. So so actually, so the ridge line that we had just come off of, I guess at this point is directly behind us, but it was connected to this high ground to our left. So if whoever was up there was coming along and back around, we would have been on the same ridge line. But so it's coming from the left. I know that. I run up, I get behind I get behind all that I have, which is like this little tree. I'm gonna say apricot tree because it's what I've been saying for years. But it's just this little tree, and then I face towards where the fire is coming from. Um, I'm I know that it's coming from, so now I'm facing what was my left. I'm facing this hill. I'm in the orchard. So most of this hill is covered up by these leaves, um, where the fire is coming down, and it's still coming down. And so I can't see. I could see the base. I could see the base of the hill. Um, but the first thing I do is I return fire. I return fire, and if you've been in Afghanistan, you know what this is like. You're like, okay, I know it's that hill. I don't see specifically where, but I know it's that hill, and I'm not just gonna let them get away with shooting at me. So now I'm pumping some rifle rounds into this hill that I don't see anybody. I can only I'm in their impact area, but I can't see them. Um, but I'm not gonna not shoot, 'cause that's what you're supposed to do. So I'm shooting, and like I said, um, so Sergeant Major, he's bounding forward, and I look and I can see, and I don't know how he got that far off to the left. But I could see the other team leader in my squad. He's out there. He's in the prone. He's got this look on his face. He's got this look on his face. He's like, and and now I'm starting to get my bearings, and I'm looking, and I can see the rest of our squad returning fire, and then bounding back to something. They're bounding back. They're making a deliberate movement. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Let's do that. Let's do that. But the other team leaders even further back from me. So we're all calling. We're like, get back here, come to us. And so he comes back towards us. He bounds past me back to wherever everyone's bounding. And it looks like everyone else is set, and it's still coming down, and it's everywhere. Um, it, it's coming down everywhere, and that's just an interesting feeling. Um, because I know I can't just stay where I am, because the odds are where I'm laying in the prone right now could be the impact area for one of these mysterious rounds coming from a mountain. So I've got to move, and it's it's an interesting feeling when you got to stand up and run in something like that. That's a unique feeling. Um, but I remember that other team leader comes past me. Everyone else is bounded. I can see that they're in a line. They're lined up, and they're laying down in the prone. So they've got something better than what I'm in, what I'm in right now. And they're yelling at me, "Hey, come back to us, come back to us." And I remember saying, "All right, I'm coming," and they're firing. They're returning fire. I don't know if they can see any better than I can, but I think we're all in agreement that we're not gonna let this go unanswered. So they're like, "Come back, come back." I I stand up, and as I'm running back, they're firing, past me back at this mountain, and I bound back to where they are, and we're in this ditch. It's like an irrigation ditch. So you've got the orchard, and then off to the right hand side, and there's no more orchard after that. Now, so it's orchard, irrigation ditch, and I'm pretty sure that wall might have been off to the right hand side, and then it's clear up to the mountain. But we're taking all the fire from what was the left as you're looking down the valley. So everyone's in a ditch. The ditch is like a foot deep, maybe. So if you're laying in the prone, if you're laying on your stomach, if you're laying on your stomach and you pick your head up, your head is outside of this ditch. And in terms of width, it's about body width, like a standard ranger's body width. So I tumble into the ditch, and I have a completely different feeling now, because now I'm in a line with our guys, and and I w I don't know if I was scared. I don't know if I was scared at first. I That first piece, I was so confused. My mind was just trying to wrap around what this reality was. I don't know that I was scared. the closest thing to what I would call scared, and I will feel scared, so don't worry about that. That's not what this is about. I will feel the I will feel the fear, but the closest I'd get to in this first part is when I had to stand up and run through to get to where the rest of the squad was. So, but I get there, and now all the boys are there, and they're returning fire, and that's like instant motivation, instant like, hey, I'm with them. We're together. We're all together. And we're we're laying in the prone. We're firing that way. I look behind me. I got my guys. I look forward. The other team's there. Like we're all together. And then we're shooting some. And again, still rounds are impacting everywhere. And then the train starts to leave the station, and then we're crawling towards the compound. But now we're in this irrigation ditch. Um, so we're continuing to make that move. Um, Something I didn't see, but I want to call out in this moment is we had a gun team with Mark 48. You know, everyone else is rocking M4s, 5.56. We're shooting at this hill. You know, we're not really, we don't have the distance. It's not necessarily made for that. 7.62 is going to be our best bet, especially the Mark 48. We had a gun team courageously, you know, they did the right thing. They did what they had to do. They placed themselves in a position where they could provide cover for the formation, and they did work. And you know, fast forwarding, they were ultimately, not that that's what it's about, but they were awarded valorous awards for their actions that day. The gun team leader was Adam Bott, who'd pass, you know, a year later, something like that, year or two later. And his gunner was a good guy too, but he's around. So So we're in this ditch. We're moving forward. Now we're starting to crawl. We're starting to low crawl, starting to not low crawl, high crawl, I guess it is technically. So we're getting shot at. I think by now, I no order was given, but you know, it's like, okay, shooting is a little useless at this point. We can't see them. We've got cover. We need to move. I think that's essentially what the vibe that passed through our squad. So we're heading off down towards the compound, and we're high crawling. And there's a moment where, you know, the next person in front of me is Andrew Rodriguez, and we're maybe 3 feet apart, and we're 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 low crawling, and the rounds are everywhere. Still, a tracer comes zooming in right in between his feet and my head, and hits right into the ditch we're in. And he turns around and he's like, yo, that was close. And we laugh. We laugh about it. I don't know why we laugh, but it felt right at the time. And and then we keep going. We're low crawling, or high crawling through this ditch. And at a certain point, the ditch runs out. The ditch doesn't go all the way up to the compound, and it's a long ditch. It's a long ditch. If from where the ambush was initiated to where the compound was, that probably would have been like, I don't know, a 5 minute walk, let's say, if I could walk like a normal human being. But high crawling 5 minutes, man, it felt like a lifetime. We were probably also moving a lot faster than I give myself credit for. Another, as an aside, another reason why you need to be fit. You got to be fit to do these jobs. You know, remember, awake all day, no water. We've long since run out of water, right? Climbing up and down mountains, and that's when you get ambushed. That's when it happens. That's why the training is the way it is. Anyways, the irrigation ditch runs out long before, pretty far before it gets to the compound. Um, this is now we're talking. Now we're talking to each other. So squad leaders talking to the team leaders are like, hey, we need to get in there. We need to make a break for it. Um, I don't really remember the order, but I remember looking up and being like, whoa, that is a far sprint in the open to get into that compound. And I don't remember the order of who went first. What I do remember is when it was our time to go, I think the first team may have covered for our team. They would do that. They would make us go first. I did think they did covering fire for us, whatever that was useful. Oh, one thing I gotta say is before we leave this ditch, um, not too long after I make it into the ditch, A10s roll in, and we've got a JTAC with us. A10s roll in, and see, I don't remember if they dropped ordnance on the first one or if they did their main gun. I think they did. I don't know what they did, but they did something, and it felt like they showed up really fast. So I'm in the ditch. We go. A10 show up, drop something. We cheer because infantrymen always cheer, no matter the circumstance, for the A10 runs. Um, that's a good morale boost too. But then after that, the rest of the time, the A10s came in really low and over this ridge line, and they were doing dropping flares. So they call it a show of force. Um, I suspect that if they had more ordnance to drop, they would have. So I don't know if they had been engaged elsewhere and then came on station for us and did the best they could. But it was very quickly that they didn't have anything to drop or shoot. It seemed like to me. I think they got maybe one pass in, and then after that, they were just like going fast and low over the heads of whoever was shooting at us to keep them down. So I had to take that second to stop and shout out the A10s. Um, so I'm back in the ditch, and we got to make a break for this compound. So um, so I need to go. I get up, they cover, I get up, and in my head, if you listen to any of the earlier episodes of this, you know that like movies were a big part of why I got into the military. My father was in the military, but movies were especially a big deal. Saving Private Ryan was one of the big ones. And I remember a scene in the movie where there's a scene in the movie where Tom Hanks is leading an assault on this machine gun nest at this like radar site, and he does like this zigzag. He does like this zigzag run. And I'm in this ditch, and they say, "Hey, go. Here's your chance. Go." And then I get up and I think of Tom Hanks. And instead of making a beeline for the compound entrance, I zigzag. I I feel like I remember. I don't know if the zigzag worked. I'm not making the case for the zigzag. They don't teach the zigzag. I did the zigzag and I'm alive. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Um, I do the zigzag. I I believe that that caught some attention, and I believe that I remember rounds impacting someone taking a shot at me, taking a shot for the title. But anyways, I zigzag. I cross the threshold into the compound, get around thick mud walls, tall mud walls. Thank God. I get in there and my legs just turn to jelly and I collapse onto my knees. And right behind me piling in is is the rest of the squad and other people. They're just materialized all around me. And so like I'm on my knees and hooray, we're on the compound, right? We're saved. No, because now I'm in a compound and I'm looking at I'm looking at like 12 doors, 15 windows, you know, and right in the center of this compound, there's like some sort of agricultural shed. There's some donkeys tied up, like all these threats in this compound. And so, Sergeant Major, eventually I'm able to stand up, and the Sergeant Major is like, "Hey, we need to start clearing this for the rest of the guys coming in." We're like, "All right," and my team stacks up on, and he's the one that makes that call. He's the one that's clear headed, and he says, "Hey, we need to start clearing this stuff." He stacks up on the first door. My team gets in behind him, and like a good sergeant major should, he says, "Hey, who's the team leader? Hey, where's the team leader?" I go, "Right here, sergeant major." He says, "All right, get in there." and which is exactly what he should do, and exactly where I should have been. And so I'm like, and that's always good for a knees weak infantryman to have the sergeant major say, "Hey, go do your job." So boom, all right, I'm back. Time to get to work. So go into the first room, and then we just start clearing. We just start clearing. Nothing in there. And as we're clearing this compound, everyone's piling in. The whole formation, the strike force is piling into this one compound. And by the time we get to the end clearing, totally, totally tired. We're all intermixed. It's fine. It's not that big of a deal, but we're in there. We've done strong points where we can. We've got our machine guns set up, but we're all in the compound, relatively safe. It's pretty wild. Um, the looks on everyone's faces, it was everyone was pretty shocked. Everyone was pretty shocked. Um, Clearly tired, dusty. It definitely looked like everyone had spent their time in the dirt avoiding bullets. So, and early on, I was aware of one casualty who was our company commander, actually. He was the ground force commander for this. So I remember seeing him bleeding from the leg, and he's in that center area, and the medics are working on him. And, um, and they gave him one of those medicinal lollipops that makes him feel good. And he was making sense for about a minute. And then after that, he started to get a little kooky. So the rest of the leadership that took control. One of the calls in true Ranger fashion, everyone is dying of thirst. Just I crawled through the dirt to get in here. Nobody has water, so we're like, "Hey, it's hot. We should take our like get comfortable, take our tops off." So we have security out, and then platoon sergeant's like, "All right, everyone, take your tops off, take your take your shirts off, just go to undershirts and your kit." So we do that. We take time to get uniformly ununiformed, so we do that, and then um, the the fire support officer, FSO, there's the FSO and the JTAC, who is Air Force. They set up in kind of like this one of the rooms, one of the side rooms that doesn't have a wall. Maybe it's more like a shed. And now they start really getting to work, and they're calling all kinds of things. And at this point, um, I think the shooting is more sporadic because we're all in the same compound, and most of what you're hearing is just aircraft doing work. Again, looking out and seeing the A-10s continue. They're the first ones that I remember seeing, and dropping something, I think, and then doing their shows of force just over and over and over again. And then I'm chilling next to, sort of like the radio shack, I guess, they kind of set up where they were calling in the air support, and I could hear them talking. And somewhere not too far away was another tick, troops in contact. So we were needing to share assets with whoever else was duking it out that day, whoever that was. So, um, so they're doing that, and now we reach a weird point where okay, we're strong pointed in this compound. There's not too much to do. There are a lot of guys who have nothing to do in this moment because you can only have so many guns pointed out of so many areas. It's thick mud walls. We do start to create portholes in some of the walls. So I guess we pick up axes. I remember briefly manning a porthole, um, but we're like crazy out of water, and at this point you're really starting to feel it, like just dying of thirst, like a unique level of thirst here. I remember seeing like some gourds, like squash, stuff like that. They had like this little area where they had where whoever the family was had that. And so I remember walking up to one and I was so thirsty. I was like, well, maybe if I cut this open, there'll be some kind of moisture in there. So I had this very small blade on my kit because I'd gone to this knife fighting school before we left for this deployment. Um, and then I like cut open this gourd and then it had nothing. It was like bone dry. It sucked. Um, there's nothing there. So we were feeling it. Um, we were at some point there are moments of where things lighten up. So the fire from the enemy had gone down to be more sporadic at this point. Um, the two donkeys in the middle of the compound started to copulate. I believe that's the right term. Um, and we found that funny. Another moment where we were laughing. It just seemed very odd. They were getting it on right there in the middle of this gunfight. We thought that was hilarious. And then it was just sort of waiting it out while the airstrikes were going on. Um, things were quiet for a little while, taking stock, walking around, seeing the different rooms, seeing who was where. Um, and then what we didn't know was during this lull, um, the folks who had been gracing us with their fire were starting to work around the valley, and so they're the lull is because they've displaced and they're now coming around. We don't know that. Sometime in this area, midday, like we're dying of thirst, we call in a resupply for water. So, um, what ends up coming down the valley is we call it a casa. It's this white civilian plane. It's unarmed. At the time, I'm pretty sure those were only contractors flying them, but it could have been U.S. service members. Don't know, but again, I'm hearing like the radio calls going on. They're like, "Hey, please put it in the middle of this compound. Try we don't care what you break, just put it right in here." And so the Casa's flying low and slow straight down this valley, and we're watching it come in, and we can hear the enemy shooting at it. Um, See it come right over us. It's got propellers, 2 propellers, I think. It comes right over us and see the pallet. It's dropping a pallet and it's like 2, 3 parachutes open and it lands, boom, out in the open, outside of the compound, out in the open. And so we're like, dude, that's where the water is. Um, 4, I believe it's 4 folks volunteer to run out there to get the water. This is pretty brave. It's like 3 squad leaders. It's like 3 squad leaders and like a team leader. They're like, "Hey, we'll go get it." So, um, they make a run out there out into the open, and they get to this pallet, and the pallets got the netting over it. Um, it's got plastic, it's got this, that, it's busted up. It's busted up, so it's not as intuitive as how to unwrap this thing. I didn't see this personally, but I'm obviously there in the compound to get, you know, the the first hearsay, I guess. But um, they're trying to disentangle it, and that's about the time we figure out that our friends are worked their way around to the other hillside, and they start shooting down at them, at the four guys who volunteered to go get to the pallet. My squad leader is one of them. They're trying to get the rigging off of the water, and they start getting shot at. They're in the open, and they're making the run to go back, and D-ring on my squad leader's kit. I believe it's my squad leader. Gets kit, as best as I can recall, gets caught up in the webbing of the pallet. So he's like stuck, and like they're trying to untangle him while they're getting shot at. And I did personally see them zoom back in, and like brace up against the wall when they got back in. Like it got close. It was close before, but I think these guys did something special to try to get that water, and they didn't. I don't think they didn't bring back anything meaningful. So, and that's also when we realized that okay, they're on that hill, and so where before we had been all congregated out near the walls, a couple folks were inside um, the rooms of this compound, but everyone was kind of congregated against the walls and the strong points. Well, now we're the fire is picking back up, and this compound is a lot closer to this hill that's over on this side that they've moved to. So now they have a vantage point where they're shooting right in. They can shoot right into the compound, and they do. And so someone from the enemy side gets smart, starts pumping machine gun rounds into the compound where we're all congregated, and now we scatter into the rooms. We can't be out. So now we're in the compound, and we're all forced indoors, except for the strong points. The strong points could hold because of the angle, but anybody else in the middle of the compound got forced inside. And so yeah, I remember the moment where the fire came in. Everyone was like, "Oh shit!" And so we scramble in. Everyone scrambles into different random rooms, and I'm in a room with, it's like the prayer room, we believe it to be the prayer room, and we're in there with a bunch of guys, and it's the room closest to one of the strong points, one of the corners of the compound. We're held up there for a while. Now we can't go outside. You can't step outside, or they got the angle on you. They can shoot. They have a good angle on the front doors because all the in the compound, all the rooms are in a row, and they've got the angle looking right at it. So you can't even hang out. You can't even step a foot outside because they've got the angle on you. So at this time, I remember maybe it's not then, but so we're held up in this room, and there's a decent number of us in there, and now there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. There's some windows there, but we've already got it covered. If you've got a rifle, you're only so useful in this fight right now. So I remember I'm hanging out in that room, and my team's in there. My team just so happens to be in there. Um, and one of my guys tells me like, "Hey, you should try to like rack out. You should try to catch some Z's. Like we can't do anything. You should just try to relax." I was like, okay. He's like, actually, I got something. And he takes his kit off, and in the back, he has something called a map, which is just like a backpack that attaches to your kit. He pulls out a citrus Rip a small citrus Rip can. He's like, I've been saving this. So I'm like, holy shit. Okay, so he's got the citrus Rip. He's like, you want to share it? I was like, yeah, I'll share that. So he cracks open the citrus Rip, excuse me, takes a sip, passes it to me. I take a sip. The most delicious thing I've ever tasted in my life. Just it's liquid. I'm pretty sure it was warm, but the flavor, like if you're dying of thirst and then someone hands you something with that much sugar in it. I don't think it was sugar free. It was a darker can. So it was the most delicious thing I've ever tasted in my life. This citrus ripet, and him and I share that. And then I just I just lay down and try to relax. I don't know for how long. I don't know if I actually fell asleep. The next memory I have though is that the rate of fire picks up, and um, I'm hearing we're calling more things in closer to us. I remember hearing like F-15s. I remember hearing. I remember them talking about wanting to get HIMARS, which is a big deal. HIMARS is rocket artillery. It's used for um, like conventional, like you use HIMARS if you want to take out like a tank battalion, right? Like if you want to take out an enemy trench line, if you want to take out, you know, like serious armored and conventional threats. And here we are. The situation is dictated that they're considering calling in HIMARS in our general direction. So we're obviously aware that the people fight that are pinning us in here are aware that we're probably going to try to do something at night. So they make a big push in the late afternoon to come get us. And we have folks along with us who have the capability to listen in to what our the enemy is saying, and they're saying that basically like, hey, we need to get in there. We need to get into that compound. We need to make a push for it. So the intensity is picking back up again. And they're talking about HIMARS. I don't remember HIMARS. We did get B1 support, the B1 bomber support. We did get that. I remember it coming in. I remember doing like the thing, you like open your mouth, close your eyes, or something like that for the overpressure because it's going to come in close enough. Um, so we were calling it closer and closer, and they were shooting more and more. They got close enough to where they picked back up with the RPGs. They were coming at the strong point, like I said, the strong point closest to the room that a lot of us were held up in. And so these RPGs kept slamming into the walls on in and around the outside of this room we're in. And there's one of the squad leaders are in there, and it's me. Him and I are looking at each other, and we're like, we need to get out of this room because it's impacting on this room. And also, they're making the push for that corner. The guys on the corner are being brave. Um, in fact, I believe it was two brothers. My memory serves, we had two brothers who were both serving in our platoon. I think one was a 48 gunner and one was a 46 gunner. And I think they were both on the same corner. It's not supposed to work out that way, but it does. If I had my brother there, I don't think I'd want him anywhere else. So those guys were doing work on that corner, keeping us safe, and they kept pushing against the enemy with RPGs. And so the squaller and I look at each other like, we got to get out of this room. So we're in this ante room, and then we come up with this plan. The plan is, okay, we need to get out of this room, but we need to be organized about it. And we can't all crowd the same room because we're in the biggest room. Everything else is smaller. So the plan is whoever goes first has to run the furthest. Has to run. Again, the rooms are all in a line. So whoever comes out of this room first has to sprint down all the way down to the first room. And then everyone else needs to pile out and then tuck in to the next room behind them, is basically what the plan is. I'm like, okay, I'll go first. I'll run the farthest. So me and one other guy, we're gonna run the furthest and then cut in. And so RPGs are picking up, they're hitting that room. And so we're like, all right, here we go. And we call out, we're like, hey, we're about to make a break out of this room. There, and then the guys in the other rooms are like, what? So the squad leader goes, okay, go. So I go out first, hang a right, and I'm just straight down, passing maybe six other rooms until I get to the seventh, all the way down at the towards the other strong point, and I go in. And of course, the volume of fire picks back up, and rounds are like inside the compound, and the guys in the other rooms are yelling at us like, "What are you doing? Get it back inside!" Like they don't know, they didn't know. So everyone redistributes out of that room, out of that one room, or most of them, near as I can tell. And now I'm in a room, and it's me, it's an FO, it's one of the FOs, and like guy, one other guy, and we're in the furthest room. And now it's getting later at night, and um, before it gets dark, I remember they called in Apaches. So we're getting a lot of assets. Like this is a pretty big deal. We're completely surrounded. Um, they've got every tactical advantage on us. We got ourselves in a real good position here. Um, the Apaches call in that they're going to, or rather, I hear that the Apaches, I don't know if the Apaches decide to or we asked them to, but either way, they're brave for doing this. The Apaches decided that they were going to fly low and slow down the valley to figure out exactly where these people were that were shooting at us. And they did. So these Apaches are coming down low and slow, just down the valley, watching a couple Apaches do this. Um, and then presumably they go to work. I don't remember exactly the specifics after that. So I'm in this room now, and it's like starting to get to twilight, starting to get dark again, and completely trapped inside. We even had to evacuate a room inside the compound that we're in. It's me and the FO. I won't say his name, but he wasn't feeling very good about the situation. He was like, and he's a good guy, and I got nothing bad to say about him, but he wasn't taking the situation that we were in very well. And he was saying like, he was saying like, dude, we're gonna die in here. And I was like, we're not gonna die in here. It's gonna be all right. Um, he wasn't taking it well. He was he was still doing his job, but he was like, this is not good. He was of the opinion that this was not a good situation. And I knew we weren't in a good situation either, but I don't mentally I had not I was not at the point where I was willing to sort of say like, okay, this is definitely happening. And we kept hearing the chatter that they wanted to bum rush the compound um, towards at twilight when they could still see. So we were expecting it, and now I'm on, and now I'm on, and now I'm all the way across the compound in the room next to the other strong point. So it's like, well, shit. So if they do bum rush and they get in, they're gonna like this is one of the first rooms they're gonna come in. They're gonna be pretty motivated. So I remember taking out a hand grenade. This is crazy, man. This is a crazy thing to have to think. I remember taking out a hand. I had one hand grenade. I didn't like grenades, but I carried one because I had to. I took it out and I set it down next to me. And I remember we had a special way that we taped it up. So I remember unspooling the tape, so it was like extra ready. The pin was still in. The pin doesn't just fall out, by the way, so it was still very safe. But I unspooled the tape that we had rigged on it, and I set it right next to me. And I pretty much made the plan. I was like, all right, so if they get in here, it's like all my rifle ammunition, and then it's grenade time for all of us. So that's kind of the headspace we were in there. Um, kind of before this, before we all kind of got shut in into the rooms, I remember kind of walking around because again, there's nothing to do. My M4 isn't going to be helpful at the strong point, so I can't get water. I can't do this or that. There's nothing to do. So I remember walking around. I remember coming up to one room and looking in. There's some guys in there. I remember seeing the faces on some of the guys, and they were like pretty scared. You know, these are the same guys that I see, you know, raiding, raiding every night, being badasses. And this was a tough situation for all of us. Some folks and some guys who had been in some pretty serious stuff before too, some big things before. and it was humbling to see folks that I look up to humbled. And so the gravity of the situation was clear. So anyways, so it's getting dark. We know that we want the birds to come in because of all the fire, and because we were so distributed, the plan didn't make its way around as well as it could have been. So some of us were kind of left sitting wondering what the hell was going on. It finally did get dark, and then the fire had lifted. It wasn't really even sporadic now. And then word got around that, hey, we're going to be leaving. The birds are going to come in and pick us up. We're like, great. So we're like, okay, we might survive this thing. So it's dark for an hour or two, and then they're like, all right, police up everything, get ready, form up, and and we get in two lines. It's like almost like you're gonna load a bird at the fob before you leave. So all day we'd been shut out of the most of the day we've been shut out of standing outside in the compound. Now it's dark, no one's shooting at us anymore. And now we're right back to all right, get in a line. Hey, get over here, get in a line. Let me count you off. So we're counting counting each other off to get on the bird. Um, and then they come for us. They come get us, the 160th. They come in, fly. They land in that open area, roundabout where that pallet was. So they come in, they land. See them come in, land. We walk out, walk out. No one shoots at us while we're walking out that I know, or I was very focused on getting on that bird. Pile into the birds. Ramp comes up. They come up as we're lifting off. The gunners go to town. The mini the gunners on the birds go to town with their miniguns. So Um, afterwards, I heard that they were shooting at us, that potentially even RPGs they were trying to get us. It would make sense. These seem like relatively sophisticated folks who were shooting at us. I didn't see it. I was just in the bird, and I was aware that we weren't safe yet, flying out of the valley. Um, Also, I was aware because the guys on the miniguns were going to town. They were like going nuts, firing. And I don't know, maybe that's preemptive. I don't know. So, but eventually they stopped shooting, and then we were just flying along. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm sort of safe. I'm still in this bird that I'm scared of now, but we're sort of safe. To the to the air crew's credit, so I guess they knew that we had been out there a long time without water or food. So, they passed there were a couple, like, regular sized Gatorade bottles that had come around, and I remember everyone getting to take a sip and then pass it around, and then this is, like, a really odd thing, but the air crew, they knew we were hungry too, but they passed out these small individual packets of powdered donuts, and it was just like your mouth is completely dry. You only got like one gulp of Gatorade, and then they gave us powdered donut. I couldn't even eat it. Like my mouth was so dry already. I couldn't eat these powdered donuts. Again, thank you for thinking of us and for doing that. But literally almost anything else would have been better than powdered donuts. And so we're safe, and we're on the bird, and we're flying out of there. And that entire time, the only casualty was, well, aside from the broken legs and ankles earlier on in the mission, just the one, I don't know if it was gunshot or if it was RPG shrapnel. The company commander got it. So leading from the front. Um, that was it. Everyone else was was okay. Well, or let me say, they weren't shot. No one else got shot. No one died. So we land. By the time we land, the sun's coming back up, and we're getting off the bird. And we were co-located with another platoon from our company. I remember we were getting off, and I remember seeing the looks on their faces, seeing us come off. And now we know we're alive, and we know no one got seriously hurt. The CO is going to be fine. Um, and so I just remember the looks on their faces was like a combination of concern and envy, you know. Um, and I know what they felt because later on and in other situations, I'd feel the same thing. When one of your sister platoons goes out and gets into something, and you're like, "Damn, I would have liked to have gotten into something." Um, and they helped us out, and we settled in. Thankfully, we didn't need to go out on a mission the next day. That was a good shower. First one afterwards. Um, I never learned anything significant about who we fought, who the hell we caught, you know, how, where were it would have been there were some assets that were missing from the equation, I think, that could have stabilized things. Like, where were those things? What was going on? Who is that other um unit in a tick as well? Don't know any of that. I just know that we all survived, and that was just the very beginning of the deployment. So, I guess the last thing I'll say as I'm wrapping this up is I was I don't know that I was quite engaged. I had a girl, we'll say girlfriend, fiance, a significant other, we'll say that. I had a significant other who I would go on to marry. But I remember getting cleaned up, sleeping, eating, hydrating, and oh well, one quick story before that is that so I'm walking around after I take my kid off, put all our stuff in the ready room, and then people were like, "Hey, did you get shot?" Because they're seeing where that sling had cut through, and I was bleeding a little bit on my shoulder. They were like, "Hey, did you get shot, dude?" And they were like, and I was like, and for a split second, I was like, "Oh, dude, this is easy. I could just say I did. This is easy. Purple Heart, free license plates for life, dude." But I was like, "Nah, it was just my sling. It was just my sling." And so um, I resisted temptation to inflate injuries there. Um, but going back to what I was saying before, last thing is, so I finally get on the phone, and back then, we had cell phones, but well, we weren't allowed to even take them overseas, so you can only call from a landline there. So I get on the phone with my significant other, and she's like, "Hey, haven't talked to you in a little while. How are things going?" I'm like, "I can't say anything. I'm not allowed to." I'm like, "I'm okay. We've been very busy. We've been very busy lately." And that's like the same code word that every couple since the beginning of time has used to say, like, we were getting into it. "Oh, I'm busy. Are you busy at work?" Yeah. Yeah, it's been busy, right? So code cracked. Um, but and she was like, "Okay, because she was like, "So let me tell you about this dream I had." I was like, "Okay." She's like, "The other night I had this dream you you were running through this field, and there were all these fireworks going off all around you." And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." I was like, "That's very interesting. I don't know anything. Yeah, that's strange." And I was just like, could that dream have just been she hadn't heard from me for a couple days? And that's like probably pretty easily attributable to combat in general, maybe. But the timing seems odd. I just thought that was interesting. And that's it. That's that mission. So this will probably be the most long-winded. See, that's why we need Steve here to keep me from rambling. So, and that was that mission. And there would be more. I'll talk about more smaller, um, other things that went on, but that's the one just from a sequence of events that was very interesting. And as a platoon, we always referenced and remembered that mission, and thought I'd share it with you all. So thanks for listening. We'll catch you in the next one. Take it easy.